Hey guys, tonight we'll be exploring something a little mysterious, a little unsettling and deeply calming. 2 hours of real alien evidence softly whispered across time and space. Whether you're winding down from a long day, drifting into a gentle sleep, or just curious about what might be watching from the stars, you're in the right place. If this kind of content helps you relax, please subscribe, like the video, and leave your favorite alien theory in the comments. It helps more than you know. Let's start, not with the loud and flashing, but with something silent, slow, and vast. The black triangles. Across continents and decades, there have been calm, eerily consistent reports of massive triangular crafts drifting across the night sky. No noise, no blinking lights, just quiet black shapes blotting out the stars. They've been seen hovering over highways, rural fields, and military installations. Witnesses, police officers, pilots, average families driving home describe the same thing. A triangle the size of a football field or more, moving at a walking pace, soundless, with soft lights on each corner and sometimes a larger pulsing orb in the centre. These are not fleeting glimmers or blinking dots in the sky. These are slow-moving structures, sometimes floating overhead for minutes before vanishing into the horizon. The earliest consistent reports began in the 1980s, with the wave of sightings over Belgium between 1989 and 1990. Thousands saw them, including military radar operators who confirmed unknown craft moving in ways aircraft shouldn't. Belgian Air Force jets were scrambled. Pilots locked radar onto the triangles, only to watch them vanish from their instruments, moving at impossible speeds, then stopping mid-air. But Belgium was just the beginning. In the years that followed, sightings trickled across the world, in the Hudson Valley of New York's, in the rural fields of England, in the skies over Phoenix, Arizona. And while some skeptics pointed to secret military aircraft like the B-2 stealth bomber or rumoured surveillance platforms, there's something about the shape, size and silent motion of the black triangles that doesn't quite add up. Many of these craft appear far larger than anything conventional, and they glide at altitudes and angles that defy the known laws of aerodynamics. No jet engine roar, no contrails, just a profound stillness, as if the very air around them has been bent into quiet. Some believe they are part of a human black budget program, reverse-engineered from alien technology perhaps, and operated out of secret facilities hidden in the desert. Others think they aren't ours at all, that these ships, so deliberate and so calm in their movements, are watchers from another world, collecting data, observing, studying, without interference. There's a strange tranquility to their presence, as though their silence is intentional, a kind of courtesy or detachment. And if you ever see one, you might not feel fear, you might feel awe. The kind of quiet awe that makes the hairs on your arms rise not from panic, but from the deep sense that something intelligent, something old, has passed above. One man from Indiana described lying on his back one warm summer night watching the stars when one portion of the sky began to dim. A shape moved overhead, blotting out starlight, but it made no sound. It wasn't a dream. He said it felt like a shadow had noticed him. These stories repeat with a dreamy consistency, their details soft and strange. No beams of light, no alien figures, just enormous floating geometry, triangles in the sky whispering across the clouds. If they are real, they are patient. If they are from here, their technology is beyond what we admit. And if they are from somewhere else, then the night sky is not empty. It's occupied gently by something that moves in the dark, and always has. Let's keep drifting. Our next mystery waits just beyond the static. Let's now explore one of the most famous whispers from the stars, a signal so brief, so clean and so strange that it continues to stir minds and hearts decades later. the signal simply known as WOW. On the quiet evening of August the 15th, 1977, Dr. Jerry Eman was working with the Big Ear radio telescope at Ohio State University. It was part of a long-standing project to scan the skies for signs of extraterrestrial intelligence, not bursts or noise, but narrowband signals, the kind nature doesn't usually make. What he saw on the computer printout was a 72-second spike that stood out like a single piano key struck in an empty house. The numbers and letters translated to an intensity that no known source could explain. It came from the direction of the Sagittarius constellation, from somewhere near the Chi Sagittarii star group, and it was never heard again. Dr. Amon circled it in red pen and wrote a single word beside it. Wow! It was not a message, not a pattern, just a solitary tone, perfectly within the frequency band that scientists believed aliens might use. A quiet part of the radio spectrum protected on Earth where nothing human should be transmitting. For some, this signal became a soft beacon of hope, that maybe, out there in the stars, something or someone had aimed a brief signal directly at us and then moved on. Or maybe it was just a random alignment of cosmic phenomena, yet attempts to recreate it, to hear it again, have never succeeded. It has remained a phantom, a 72-second footstep in the dark. Some astronomers have tried to explain it as a reflection of Earth-based signals or even emissions from a passing comet, but these ideas don't quite fit the shape and strength of what was detected. The WOW signal was narrow, clean, focused, traits that hint not at chaos but at intent. And intent is what keeps people returning to it, not in alarm, but in a kind of quiet yearning. If this was real, then for just over a minute, another intelligence reached toward us, and we caught it. The moment is like a brief glimpse of a candle in the far woods. So fast you wonder if you imagined it, but you didn't. It was recorded. It was real. And then it was gone. In the decades since, scientists and amateurs have turned their instruments toward that same region of space, hoping for a repeat. But space doesn't repeat on command. The silence that followed has only deepened the mystery. If someone did send a message, why not more? Why only once? Perhaps it was just a glance, a pulse meant not for us, but for someone else entirely. Or perhaps we missed the rest. Our machines weren't ready, our ears were closed, or perhaps they were testing, seeing if we would answer, but we didn't. The WOW signal feels like an echo of something more, like a pebble dropped into the ocean of stars, its ripple still drifting toward us. It humbles us in a way that sleep stories should, reminding us how small we are, how quiet the universe seems, and how thrilling it is that even one anomaly like this exists in all that darkness. Imagine laying under a night sky, knowing that one tiny slice of space, out there near Sagittarius, may have briefly carried a voice not born on Earth. It's not about proof. It's not about panic. It's about presence. Something was there, just for a breath of time, and then, as softly as it came, it vanished. Let's keep floating, now, into the next ripple of this strange cosmic sea. Our next tale takes us not to the stars, but into the mind, into a story of memory, mystery, and quiet fear, the story of Betty and Barney Hill. Our next story drifts softly through the mists of memory, a slow unfolding of a journey, a detour, and a dream that lingered long after waking. It begins in the cool autumn of 1961, with Betty and Barney Hill, a married couple driving home through the quiet mountains of New Hampshire. They had been on vacation in Canada, just the two of them, and were headed south. on an empty road under a star-filled sky. It was the kind of night that cradles you in stillness until something shifted. They saw a light. At first it was distant, like a star or a plane, but then it began to move, not in a straight line, but with curious, dancing motions. It zigzagged, hovered, dropped, as if watching them. As they drove, the light followed. Eventually, it descended lower, revealing a structured object, silent, large, and close. Barney stopped the car, stepped out with binoculars, and what he claimed to see chilled him to his bones. Behind the glass of this hovering craft, he saw figures, humanoid shapes staring down at him. He ran back to the car, filled with a silent panic, and they sped away. But then, things became blurry. They remembered hearing strange beeping sounds. Then, a gap. By the time they reached the next familiar landmark, 2 hours had vanished. When they arrived home, both felt oddly disturbed. Their watches no longer worked. Their clothes were scuffed and torn in ways they couldn't explain. Betty began having strange dreams, 5 nights in a row, of being taken aboard a ship, of small beings who examined her and Barney with a cold detachment. Barney, too, began suffering from anxiety and mysterious physical symptoms. Eventually, under the careful guidance of a psychiatrist, both underwent separate hypnosis sessions. What emerged from those sessions was eerily consistent. They each described being taken aboard a craft by beings with large eyes, smooth skin, and greyish complexions. Betty remembered being shown a star map, a glittering constellation she didn't recognise, but which she drew from memory. Years later, some astronomers tried to match it with real star positions from the Zeta Reticuli system, a detail that gave the story a strange and sleepy plausibility. Their case was the first widely reported alien abductio and story in modern history. But more than that, it was gentle, it was quiet. There were no invasions, no bright beams or destruction, just a couple alone on a dark road, touched by something they couldn't explain. They were ordinary people. Barney worked for the postal service. Betty was a social worker. They weren't chasing fame. In fact, they hesitated to tell their story at all. But when they finally did, it triggered a soft ripple across the world. A sense that maybe, just maybe, encounters with something not human were real. Not always loud, not always terrifying, but intimate, personal, and deeply strange. Some skeptics dismissed it all as dream logic, as hypnosis-induced fantasy, as stress filtered through culture. But those who heard their tapes, who watched them tremble under trance, who saw the tears form unbidden, found it hard to turn away. There was something real in their voices, something heavy, something touched. Whether you believe in alien abductions or not, the Hills experience invites a kind of compassion, a slow, sleepy pondering of how fragile our sense of reality can be. 2 people went for a drive beneath the stars and came back altered, maybe not in body, but in memory. And perhaps that's how the unknown reaches us. Not in thunder, but in whispers. Not in answers, but in impressions. Like a dream that feels more real than waking. Let's drift now from that quiet road in New Hampshire to another mystery etched in stone and shadow. The possibility that ancient structures on Earth may hold echoes of something not entirely human. Let's now drift gently into the silence of stone, into vast, forgotten places where ancient hands shaped the Earth in ways we still don't understand. This next theory is called the Ancient Builders Theory, and it suggests that some of the world's most mysterious structures, impossibly large, impossibly precise, might not have been built by human hands alone. It's a theory that doesn't shout, but hums beneath the surface of history, like an old song we can almost remember. Imagine for a moment the Great Pyramid of Giza, built with over 2 million stone blocks, each weighing several tons, arranged with a precision that rivals modern engineering. There are no detailed blueprints, no clear explanations in the surviving texts. Just the pyramid sitting there on the Giza plateau, aligned almost perfectly to true north. Some say it was a tomb, others that it was something far more. A message, a machine, a monument not only to the dead, but to the stars. The ancient builders' theory whispers that the architects of these structures may have had help, not from gods, but from visitors. Beings not from above in the divine sense, but from beyond in the literal one. Alien intelligence that once walked quietly among early humans, nudging our species forward like a gentle hand on the shoulder. It's not just Egypt. In Peru, there are the stones of Sacsayhuaman, fit so tightly together that not even a razor blade can slide between them. Each stone is irregular, carved and set without mortar, shaped into place with a precision that seems almost too perfect. And then there's Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey, a vast ceremonial site built over 11,000 years ago when humans were still supposed to be primitive hunter-gatherers, pillars weighing many tons, arranged in circles, decorated with carvings of animals, symbols and strange otherworldly shapes. The site was deliberately buried, as if preserved, protected, hidden from something. How did people of that time move these stones? Why did they build something so massive, so symbolic, when survival itself was still a daily struggle? The theory doesn't demand we believe in ancient astronauts as fact. Instead, it invites us to soften our sense of certainty, to ask whether contact might have happened not in crashing saucers or loud declarations, but in quiet influence, a shape in tune, a sky. A gift of knowledge, a voice that changed the way early humans saw the stars. Some believe the builders of these sites were following patterns, not earthly ones but cosmic, that the layout of pyramids, temples and stone circles echoes the constellations, the geometry of planetary orbits and the movement of celestial bodies, as if the people who built them had access to knowledge far beyond their time. Mainstream archaeologists, of course, offer human explanations, ingenious labour, generations of work, lost techniques, and those explanations matter. But the gaps, the perfect alignments, the magnetic anomalies, the mathematical codes etched into rock, they linger like unanswered questions at the edge of a dream. Could it be that someone or something once visited our ancestors, not to rule or conquer, but to teach, to plant seeds of geometry, astronomy and architecture, and then vanish? Some accounts, like those of the Dogon people in Mali, tell of visitors from Sirius who brought knowledge of stars invisible to the naked eye. Their oral traditions speak of beings called the Nomo, fish-like creatures who came from the sky and shared wisdom. How could they have known of Sirius B, a white dwarf star not officially observed by Western science until the 20th century? Coincidence? Or memory, handed down from a time when the sky touched the earth? The ancient builders. Theory is not a claim. It's a question softly asked in the language of stone and shadow. Who taught us to build this way? Who inspired us to look up, not just in awe but with purpose? And why do so many ancient cultures speak of visitors who came from the stars, not with violence, but with light? As you drift deeper now, let those stones settle in your mind, ancient, unmoving, and yet somehow still whispering. We leave them behind for now and float gently toward the stars once more, where a strange incident in orbit quietly unfolded and may have revealed more than NASA expected. Let's now drift upward, high above the Earth, into the slow silence of orbit, where in 1996 a curious incident unfolded far from crowds, far from noise, in the cold and quiet beyond our atmosphere. This next story is known as the NASA tether incident, and it begins with a simple experiment that became something else. The Space Shuttle Columbia was in orbit, tasked with a mission called STS-75. A satellite called the Tethered Satellite System, or TSS-1R, was attached to a 12-mile-long cable meant to study electricity in Earth's upper atmosphere. The idea was elegant. Reel the satellite out slowly on its tether and observe the natural generation of electrical currents. But as the tether extended, nearing its full length, something unexpected happened. The cable snapped. Just like that, the satellite, still attached to the broken tether, drifted slowly away from the shuttle, disappearing into the star-speckled distance. For a moment, it seemed like a failed experiment, unfortunate but mundane. But then came the video, as NASA's onboard cameras followed the glowing white line of the tether now floating freely in orbit. Something strange appeared on the screen. Dozens, perhaps hundreds, of circular shapes began to drift in and out of view. Translucent, disc-like forms with soft, pulsing centres, some seemingly passing behind the 12-mile tether, which gave a rough sense of scale. If these objects were truly behind the tether, they were massive. They didn't move like debris. They pulsed, glided, even hovered. Some faded in, others flickered out, and always there was the calm silence of space. NASA's official position was quick. Ice particles, camera lens effects, optical illusions caused by sunlight. But those who've watched the footage, and it is still publicly available, often walk away with a different feeling, a quiet unease, not fear exactly, but the sense to tung e tin. Had we caught a glimpse of something not meant to be seen? The objects have been compared to jellyfish, to luminous cells, to unknown living forms moving through the vacuum. Some theorists propose that space, especially near-Earth orbit, may be home to life forms of a kind we do not yet understand. Not carbon-based, not biological in the terrestrial sense, but vast, slow, and ancient. Creatures of energy or of light who pass unnoticed through the space between stars, until a camera accidentally catches them in a sunbeam. Others believe these were craft, not living, but controlled, observing, quietly present. And the tether, glowing with electrical current, may have drawn their attention like moths to a flame. The astronauts, for their part, remained calm. You can hear their voices on the radio, identifying the objects as debris, trying to keep focus. But the video tells a more surreal story, one that has haunted those corners of the internet where dreamers and skeptics meet. The STS-75 footage has been analysed frame by frame, with brightness enhanced, filters applied, and still, those soft shapes drift gently across the field of view, like seeds on the wind. Their motion is smooth, their forms deliberate. It does not feel chaotic, it feels intentional. Maybe, just maybe, these aren't visitors, but residents. Maybe orbit is not as empty as we imagine. Maybe the space around Earth is more like an ocean than a vacuum, and we are just beginning to notice the currents. The NASA tether incident has not been widely discussed in mainstream media, and yet it remains one of the most compelling pieces of visual evidence whispered about in calm corners of the UFO community. It is soft evidence, subtle, strange, and beautiful. Not proof, but presence. A reminder that sometimes, when we turn our cameras toward the stars just might look back. And now, as we flow And even further into the tree-shrouded mysteries of our own planet, we'll step softly into a quiet forest in England where strange lights once flickered through the trees, and something not quite explainable, landed without a sound. Our next gentle descent takes us into a forest wrapped in shadows and whispers, where tall pines sway beneath a grey English sky, and time itself seems to pause. This next story is known as the Rendlesham Forest Incident, sometimes called Britain's Roswell, and though it took place over 40 years ago, the trees still remember. The year was 1980, the week between Christmas and New Year's. The forest lies near two American air bases, RAF Woodbridge and RAF Bentwaters, used by the United States Air Force during the Cold War. The personnel stationed there were trained, disciplined and alert, not prone to fantasy. And yet, over the course of several nights, something happened that left behind more than stories. On December 26th, around 3 a.m, strange lights were seen descending into the woods just beyond the base. At first, some thought it might be a downed aircraft. Military police were dispatched to investigate. What they found, as they walked between the trees, would change their lives. According to their official statements, they encountered a glowing object, metallic, triangular, resting on legs. It illuminated the forest in an otherworldly light. As they approached, the object reportedly moved silently between the trees, evading contact, and then lifted into the sky with no sound, leaving only traces behind. The next morning, impressions were found in the frozen ground. 3 marks in a perfect triangle. Radiation readings taken from the site spiked in those exact spots. Tree branches nearest to the location appeared scorched. That might have been the end of it, except the lights came back. 2 nights later, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt, the deputy base commander, led a team into the forest, armed with radiation meters, tape recorders and flashlights. What happened next was documented in real time. His voice, steady and controlled, can still be heard on the recording. They saw lights again, red, blue and white, moving through the trees, pulsing, hovering, behaving unlike any known aircraft. One of the lights split into beams and shone down toward their group. Another seemed to blink in and out of view, as if dancing between dimensions. Colonel Holt's voice remained calm, describing what he saw. "It's coming this way. It's definitely coming this way." Yet no alarm, no panic, just quiet awe. The official explanation offered by the Ministry of Defence was that the lights were simply stars, a nearby lighthouse and misidentified aircraft. But those who were there, hardened men trained to observe, report and defend, never accepted that version. Over the years, several of them have gone public, maintaining the same details under oath. They weren't hallucinating. They saw something real, something intelligent, something unknown. Some believe the Rendlesham event was a test, a display by a craft not of this world, curious or deliberate in its timing. Others think it was a mistake, a brief exposure of something that normally remains hidden, cloaked from view. But perhaps the most gentle and haunting idea is that the forest was chosen, not because of the military bases, but because of its quiet, because it could hold a secret in its trees. In the years since, Rendlesham Forest has become a place of quiet pilgrimage. People walk its trails not expecting to see UFOs, but to feel something, to listen to the wind in the branches and wonder if something once passed through here, and might again. The trees are taller now, the marks in the ground have faded, but the calm voices on that old tape, the unwavering testimony of those who walked into the woods and came out changed, they remain. And as you lie there, eyes closed, breath. Things slow. Imagine a light moving gently through a darkened forest, brushing past bark and pine, silent, knowing, unseen by all but a few. As softly as it came, it vanished, but its echo still floats among the trees. Let's keep drifting. Our next mystery is not buried beneath branches, but wrapped in bone. A tiny humanoid form discovered in the desert, raising questions too strange to ignore. Let's now journey into the arid silence of the Atacama Desert, where wind whispers over salt flats and the bones of time lie just beneath the sand. This next mystery is known as the Atacama humanoid, a discovery that stirred scientific intrigue and quiet wonder alike. In 2003, a local man exploring the ghost town of La Noria stumbled upon a tiny, mummified body wrapped in cloth inside a leather pouch. At first glance, it resembled a human fetus, fragile and sun-dried by the desert's brutal climate. But as he unwrapped it, something felt different. The being was just over 6 inches tall, the length of a dollar bill, yet it appeared proportionally complete. A hard, conical skull, slanted, oversized eye sockets. 10 ribs instead of 12. Its head was elongated, its body slightly twisted, its features eerily humanoid, but also subtly wrong. News of the discovery spread quietly at first, passed between collectors and whispered about in online forums, until eventually it reached researchers in the United States. The mummy, now known simply as Atta, was brought to Stanford University for analysis by immunologist Dr. Gary Nolan. Under calm and methodical examination, DNA tests were conducted. The results were curious. Atta's DNA was human. Specifically, she was a girl, likely from the region of the Andes. But the mutations in her genes were significant. They indicated bone disorders, dwarfism, and other rare conditions. Yet none could fully explain her skeletal structure. Her bones were as developed as those of a child several years older, despite her small size. Some researchers suggest, Ted, that Atta might have been a stillborn infant with extreme genetic anomalies. Others, more quietly, wondered if she was something else entirely, something not meant to survive long in our world, or perhaps not from it at all. Those who look deeper see patterns. The elongated skull, reminiscent of those found in ancient Paracas tombs. The rib count, strange and persistent in other so-called anomalies across the world. And the location, the Atacama Desert, one of the driest, most lifeless places on Earth. A place where, for thousands of years, ancient peoples looked skyward and left offerings to the stars. Atta's body was not a fake. The analysis was careful, peer-reviewed and clear. She was once alive. Yet she doesn't quite fit within the known limits of our species. She is like a puzzle piece that resembles the rest of the picture, but doesn't quite lock in. And so she lies now, not in the desert, but in the minds of those who study the strange. A reminder that the line between myth and medicine is not always clear, and that even with all our science, some forms still defy category. The Atacama humanoid may be a genetic mystery, or she may be something else, a trace of a visitor, or of a hybrid, or of a moment where two worlds briefly touched. If we are not alone, it would make sense that contact would not always come in ships or lights, but in bodies, small, quiet, and hidden. The kind we'd overlook, the kind we'd bury in the desert and forget. And yet, she was found, preserved by dust and heat and time, as if waiting for the right moment to be seen. Atta does not answer questions. She asks them. Who made her? Where did she come from? And how many more like her might lie beneath our feet, just beneath the surface of history. As we drift onward, let's follow that unease into the next theory, one not of beings, but of those who arrive after, to silence, to era sound, see, to make strange things disappear from view. Let's explore now the quiet menace of the men in black. Let's now drift into the shadows between stories, into the calm, clinical corners of mystery where memory dims and questions go unanswered. This next idea is called the Men in Black phenomenon, and while it's been fictionalized in films, the real accounts are far quieter and far more unsettling. These figures don't come with flashy gadgets or punchlines. They arrive softly, unannounced, unsmiling, and always just after something strange has occurred. The earliest stories date back to the 1940s and 50s, when people who had seen something unusual, a strange craft, a light in the sky, a visitor they couldn't explain, would later describe being visited by odd men dressed in black suits. The men would knock on the door, they'd speak in low voices, they knew things they shouldn't, and always they would ask, politely but firmly, that the witness forget what they saw. Imagine this. A man sees something extraordinary one night, a saucer-shaped craft hovering low over a quiet road. The next morning he goes about his life, unsure of what to make of it. Then, a knock at the door. Two men stand there, pale, thin, identical in dress. Their clothes are formal but slightly outdated. Their expressions are flat, voices monotone, and their questions too specific. They don't introduce themselves. They don't show badges, but they know exactly what he saw. And they advise him, gently, to stay quiet. The man watches them walk away, get into a black car that disappears without a sound. And just like that, he's alone again. But not the same. These encounters are often described as dreamlike, as if reality itself has softened around the edges. The men in black are said to speak with strange syntax, or with voices that sound rehearsed. Some move stiffly, as though imitating human behaviour. Others display technology that doesn't exist. A few seem to appear out of nowhere and disappear just as quickly. Some theorists believe they are part of a government agency so secret it doesn't officially exist. An elite unit tasked with covering up alien encounters. But others suggest something stranger, that they're not human at all, that they are part of the phenomena, not responders to it, a kind of echo or guardian or clean-up force dispatched when humans get too close to the truth. There are stories of men in black who seem not to understand basic human customs, who stare too long or repeat phrases or drink water as if they've never done it before. In one account, a hotel clerk described a man in black whose lips never moved when he spoke. In another, a witness said the men had no fingerprints. One woman, who had taken photos of a strange craft near her home, was visited the next day by a pair of men in matching hats and overcoats. They asked about the photos, not where she kept them, but how many exposures she had taken, the type of film she used, and whether she'd made copies. When she asked who they were, they smiled, but gave no answer. Later, the photos were gone, her negatives were blank, and her camera, though untouched, had stopped working. The visits are never violent, but they leave a residue, a heavy silence, a gnawing unease, as if reality has been gently edited, as if someone pressed pause and rewrote the scene. Whether they are operatives, constructs, or projections, the men in black remain one of the softest and most persistent mysteries of the UFO world. They are not the event, they are the response, not an explosion, but an erasure. And if they are still visiting witnesses today, as some claim they do, then it suggests something is still happening, something is still being seen, something still needs to be hidden, but the truth, like these figures, rarely knocks twice. So now we drift from these silent visitors to one of the most massive public sightings ever recorded, a moment where the skies above a quiet desert city were lit by something vast and never explained. Let's float now toward the mystery of the Phoenix Lights. Let's now drift into the desert night, warm and wide, beneath a sky so clear it seems almost unreal, a black canvas pinpricked with stars, holding the silence of space like a breath not yet released. This next moment is known as the Phoenix Lights, one of the most widely witnessed and haunting UFO events in modern history. It was March 13th, 1997, a calm Thursday evening in Arizona. Families were eating dinner, kids were playing in yards, and the sky was peaceful as the sun slipped below the horizon. But then, across a span of nearly 300 miles, from the Nevada border down through the center of Arizona, people began to look up, and what they saw would ripple through time, soft as a whisper, but impossible to forget. First came the lights, 5 to 7 of them, arranged in a V shape, glowing a soft amber. They moved slowly, silently, gracefully across the sky. Some witnesses described them as separate orbs. Others swore they were lights attached to a single massive structure, a craft so large it blocked out the stars as it passed overhead. Entire neighborhoods watched together in stunned silence. Mothers, fathers, police officers, pilots, doctors, children. The sight was not brief. In some places, the lights hovered for minutes, then glided away without a sound. No engine noise, no sonic boom, just motion, smooth and deliberate as though the sky itself had grown a spine. Calls flooded local news stations and 911 dispatchers, but there was no panic, only awe, like watching a slow eclipse of the stars. Later that night, around 10 p.m., a second display of lights appeared, this time hovering in a straight line over the city of Phoenix itself. Thousands more witnessed this silent arrangement. Some captured it on camcorders, the flickering images becoming iconic, shaky, distant, but filled with the quiet wonder of that moment. The US military in it highly denied any knowledge of the event. Later, the Air Force claimed that the second group of lights were flares dropped during a training exercise at the Barry Goldwater Range. But the explanation arrived weeks after the event, and it didn't address the first wave of sightings, nor the enormous triangular shape that people reported earlier that evening. Witnesses remained steadfast. This was no flare drop. The object had shape, mass, movement, and intention. Arizona's then governor, Fife Symington, even held a press conference to poke fun at the event, having a staff address as an alien to lighten the mood. But years later, in a quiet interview, he admitted that he, too, had seen the lights that night. And what he saw was not flares. It was, in his words, otherworldly. There is something so dreamlike about the Phoenix Lights, not just because of the lights themselves, but because of how gently they arrived, how they moved across the desert sky not as invaders, but as silent travelers. And then they were gone. No crash, no message, no sound, just memory. The kind that feels too vivid to be imagination and too soft to be certainty. Even now, on the anniversary of the event, people gather in Phoenix to look up once more. They stand quietly, side by side, not to recreate the moment but to honor it, to remember the night the sky opened and revealed something. Perhaps it was a craft, perhaps a test, perhaps a presence too large for words. Or maybe, just maybe, it was an invitation to look up, to wonder, to remember how small we are beneath the stars. As you continue to drift into stillness, let's follow that path of silent sightings to another, one that took place not over a desert, but in the grey skies above one of the busiest airports in the world, where a craft appeared, paused, and vanished straight through the clouds. Let's now revisit the soft mystery of Chinots. Of the O'Hare Airport UFO, let's now drift gently into the cold grey skies over Chicago, into a moment so ordinary in setting, and yet so quietly extraordinary in what it revealed. This next story is known as the O'Hare Airport UFO incident, and it happened not in the silence of remote fields or the solitude of mountain roads, but at one of the busiest airports in the United States, in full view of trained airline personnel under the steady hum of a routine afternoon. The date was November 7th, 2006. It was just past 4 p.m. when employees of United Airlines, from baggage handlers to pilots and supervisors, began to notice something strange hovering over Gate C-17. At first it was just a murmur between ground crew, a metallic disc about 6 to 24 feet in diameter, hovering silently just below the cloud cover. No lights, no sound. Just stillness, and then the whispers spread. More workers stepped outside. Pilots radioed the tower. Some stood motionless, staring upward. The object remained motionless too, utterly silent, hanging above the terminal like it didn't belong to the sky. It had no wings, no markings, no visible means of propulsion, just a dark metallic sheen reflecting the dull winter light. And then, without warning, it shot straight up into the clouds, not gradually, not with effort, but with instant acceleration. As it vanished, witnesses described a sharp circular hole punched into the cloud layer above, as though the object had sliced through it, leaving behind a gaping wound in the sky. No sonic boom, no engine roar, just movement, and then absence. The Federal Aviation Administration, when contacted by reporters, initially claimed it had no knowledge of any such sighting, but a Freedom of Information Act request later revealed that the FAA had indeed received calls from pilots and airline workers describing the object in calm, professional detail. Their testimonies were steady, clear, not a light in the sky, but a craft, not a guess, but an observation. United Airlines itself declined to investigate, and no formal explanation was offered. The incident was officially dismissed as a weather phenomenon, but those who saw it did not forget. Many of them were aviation experts, people who know the sky, who live by its patterns and machines, and what they saw didn't fit. It wasn't a balloon, it wasn't a drone, it wasn't flares or birds or tricks of light. It was something real, physical and present, something that should not have been there. Some theorists believe the craft was observing, curious, detached and briefly visible due to some error in timing or cloaking. Others suggest it was testing our response, a probe, a scout, a silent guest watching from just above our heads. But perhaps the most haunting idea is the simplest. It was there. It came. It paused. It saw. And then it left, leaving behind only the calm confusion of those who witnessed it. No disruption, no contact, just a question that lingers, quiet and unanswered, like a note left on an empty desk. Imagine for a moment watching a machine rise into the sky faster than anything human, and knowing deep down that something intelligent had just moved through your world, briefly, deliberately, and was now gone. That is what the witnesses at O'Hare were left with. Not fear, not wonder, but stillness. A shared silence that settled over Gate C-17 and has never quite lifted. As we drift onward now into even stranger waters, let's explore not the sky, but the body. For in the quiet world of those who claim contact, there are stories not just of craft, but of objects, small, strange, and buried deep beneath the skin. Let's now slip into the mystery of alien implants. Let's now drift inward, beyond the wide skies and distant stars, and turn gently towards something far more intimate, something quiet, embedded, and lingering. This next idea is called alien implants, and it takes us from lights in the sky to the soft layers of human skin, where some claim that physical proof has been hidden in plain sight, not in the heavens, but in the flesh. These implants are often described as small, metallic, or crystalline objects that are discovered beneath the skin of people who report alien abduction experiences. The person might feel a subtle ache in a toe or a strange pressure behind the ear, and an X-ray or scan reveals something they didn't know was there, something that shouldn't be there. The most chilling part? These implants are often found without any visible point of entry. No scars, no wounds, no signs of trauma, just a foreign object, quietly waiting. The first reports of alien implants began surfacing in the 1960s and 70s, but it wasn't until the 1990s that the phenomenon began drawing serious attention, thanks in large part to a man named Dr. Roger Lehr, a California podiatrist who removed and studied several alleged implants from individuals claiming alien contact. Lehr described these objects as metallic fragments, often magnetic, that would sometimes emit radio frequencies. When removed, they would sometimes break apart or dissolve, and when studied under a microscope, their composition didn't match known industrial materials. Some implants were composed of rare earth elements or even isotopic ratios not typically found on Earth. Others appeared to be wrapped in biological tissue, as though the body had not rejected them, but accepted them. More puzzling still, many of these patients had no history of surgery or injury in the area. They simply felt that something was there, a subtle pulse, a buzzing, a presence beneath the skin that didn't belong. And when it was removed, they often described a strange change. Some felt suddenly lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. Others reported dreams stopping or memories becoming clearer. But the question remains, what are these objects? Are they tracking devices, tools of surveillance? Are they artifacts from unknown technology, or something more symbolic, a psychological key to an experience too strange to fully process? Skeptics argue that these implants are likely mundane, bits of glass, shrapnel or biological calcifications misidentified as foreign. And in many cases that might be true, but not all of them. Some defy simple explanation. There are documented cases where an object, seen clearly on an X-ray, vanishes before the surgery to remove it, as if it dissolved, relocated, or was retrieved. There are others where the implant resisted extraction, moving slightly during attempts to grasp it, almost as if evading capture. And perhaps most unsettling of all are the accounts of people who have multiple implants located in deeply specific parts of the body: the base of the skull, the inner thigh, the wrist, areas tied to nerves and sensory input. The theory is that these locations might be chosen for optimal observation or even influence. And so we're left with a whisper of something deeply unsettling, not just a presence in the sky, but one beneath the skin. Not just something seen, but something felt. The idea that an encounter could leave behind a part of itself, hidden in tissue and blood, quietly pulsing like a forgotten memory. There's something deeply personal about this. The idea that something unknown might leave a trace, a mark, a tool, something embedded not to harm, but to watch, to remember, to remain connected. And whether these implants are truly alien in origin or something stranger still, psychic scars, materialized belief, or misunderstood biology, the effect is the same, a lingering mystery tucked beneath the surface, waiting to be noticed. As we continue to float gently through these layered mysteries, let us turn now toward an ancient idea that humanity itself, MiG, had not be native to this world, that long before modern memory, our species may have arrived, not evolved. Let's now explore the theory known as the alien seeding hypothesis. Let's now drift even deeper, not just through space or memory, but through time itself, through the soft fog of prehistory to a moment far older than recorded language, far quieter than any civilization's first breath. This next theory is called the alien seeding hypothesis, and it suggests that life on Earth, particularly intelligent life, may not have begun here at all, that instead of evolving purely from the randomness of ancient oceans and volcanic winds, life, and even humanity itself, may have been seeded here, gently and deliberately, by intelligence from elsewhere. The idea isn't new. It echoes in ancient texts and tribal myths, in whispered legends of star beings and sky gods who came down from the heavens bringing knowledge, fire, and breath. But beyond myth, the theory finds its roots in science too, in the questions that evolutionary biology has never fully resolved. Why did life emerge so quickly after Earth cooled? Why does DNA seem so refined, so efficient, almost as if it were engineered rather than evolved? Why do some parts of the human genome appear to have no clear origin? These soft mysteries make some researchers wonder, what if life didn't start here, but was placed here? The broader idea is known as panspermia, the notion that life exists throughout the universe, carried on comets, dust, or drifting ice, spreading across solar systems like seeds on the wind. But the alien seeding hypothesis goes further. It suggests intent, that advanced civilizations, perhaps millions or billions of years older than us, may have planted microbial life on Earth as part of a long, slow experiment. Or maybe they planted us directly. Some versions of this theory propose that early hominids were genetically modified by extraterrestrials, that Homo sapiens did not emerge solely through natural selection, but through a quiet moment of intervention. That's so. Where in our deep past, perhaps 200,000 years ago, a spark was added. A shift, a silent upgrade, and from it came language, art, consciousness, and a restless curiosity to look up at the stars. Geneticists have long noted that humans possess an unusual number of mutations for a relatively young species. Our brains are disproportionately large, our social structures complex, and our bodies strangely ill-suited to Earth's harsh environments, sunburns, bad backs, soft skulls, almost as if we were adapted to a different world. There are even specific genes in our genome, such as the FOXP2 gene tied to language, that appear to have emerged suddenly with no clear evolutionary precursor. Could these be the fingerprints of something or someone guiding our evolution? If so, what was their purpose? Were we seeded as a scientific experiment, a galactic garden tended from afar? Or are we a long-forgotten colony left to grow in isolation, watched only from time to time? And if we were seeded, what happens when the gardeners return? There is something humbling about this theory. Not frightening, not grandiose, but still a quiet awe. The idea that we are not a cosmic accident, but part of a larger plan, that somewhere out there in the soft hum between galaxies, the ones who set us in motion are still watching, waiting, or maybe long gone, and we are their echo, a whisper left on a distant blue world. As we drift on through this night of stillness and stars, let us gently explore the next thought, not of beginnings, but of watchers. Beings who do not seed life, but observe it, unseen, unblinking, silent. Let's now step softly into the mystery of the Black Knight satellite. Now let us float gently higher into the vast stillness of Earth's upper orbit, where satellites move like slow dancers across the dark velvet of the sky. In this quiet place, above the rush of clouds and the chatter of humanity, there is said to be something watching, silent, patient, always there. This next mystery is known as the Black Knight satellite, an object believed by some to be an ancient alien probe locked in polar orbit around our planet, older than any known human technology, older even than our first dreams of flight. The story of the Black Knight is tangled in time, its threads scattered across decades. Some trace its first appearance to 1899, when Nikola Tesla, experimenting with early radio equipment, claimed to have received repeating signals from space. Patterns he believed were not of natural origin, but intelligent ones. He described a strange sense that someone, or something, was trying to make contact. At the time, there were no satellites, nothing man-made in orbit, just the quiet darkness above and the faint tap of signals echoing through Tesla's instruments. The mystery deepened in the 1950s when the US Department of Defense detected an unidentified object in orbit, moving in a way no satellite of the time could. It was in a polar trajectory, something neither the United States nor the Soviet Union had achieved yet. And yet there it was, quiet, steady, moving against the backdrop of stars like a forgotten century. Then, in 1998, during the STS-88 mission, astronauts aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavour photographed a strange object floating in low Earth orbit. The object was irregular, black, oddly shaped, and not immediately recognizable as any known satellite or debris. The images were released and quickly went viral in conspiracy circles. To this day, they are cited as photographic evidence of the Black Knight. NASA would later explain the object as space debris, a thermal blanket that had become detached. And perhaps that is true, but the legend persists, because the object fits too well into a narrative that has been building softly for generations. The idea that something has been watching us, not from beyond the stars, but from just above, close enough to see, but distant enough to hide. According to some theorists, the Black Knight is an automated probe, a sentinel from an ancient civilization placed here tens of thousands of years ago to monitor the rise of intelligent life on Earth. It may transmit data back to its creators, or it may simply observe in silence its purpose forgotten, its mission now a drifting ritual performed endlessly in the cold dark above. Some have even claimed that it broadcasts signals, pulses, patterns, frequencies that certain individuals have heard during moments of stillness. Others believe it contains knowledge, perhaps of our origin, or of what lies beyond. There is a softness to this mystery, a kind of melancholic beauty. The thought that above our noisy world, a quiet watcher turns in the sky, unseen by most, its orbit unbroken, its vigil endless. It doesn't threaten, it doesn't speak. It simply is, like a star that chose not to shine. And when you lie beneath a cloudless night looking upward, you might wonder, could it be passing overhead right now? Sliding silently across the black canvas, a shadow over shadows, remembering a time before we could look up at all. Whether the Black Knight is real or metaphor, artifact or misunderstanding, it remains a symbol of something deeply felt. The sense that we are not alone, and never have been, that our skies are not empty but gently occupied. And as we drift further now into the soft, strange corridors of possibility, let us return to Earth, to the dry deserts and quiet plains where a different kind of watcher appears, not in orbit but in visitation. Let us explore the delicate mystery of the cattle mutilation phenomenon. Let us now descend gently from the silence of orbit to the wide, open landscapes of Earth, to the lonely ranches and windswept fields of the American Midwest, where the air is dry, the skies are endless, and something strange has been quietly unfolding for decades. Our next mystery is known as the cattle mutilation phenomenon, and it carries with it a quiet unease, not because of what is seen, but because of what is missing. These incidents often begin the same way. A rancher rises early, walks his land, and finds one of his animals lying motionless in the grass, not harmed by predators, not injured by accident, but marked in ways that defy natural explanation. The animal, usually a cow, is untouched on the outside, until closer inspection reveals something deeply unusual. Precise surgical cuts along the jaw, missing ears, eyes removed with no sign of struggle, genitals excised cleanly, internal organs vanished without a trace. There is no blood, not a drop spilled. The ground is undisturbed, as if the animal had been placed there from above. No tracks, no predators, no noise in the night, just silence. And a body altered. These reports began in earnest in the 1960s and 70s, but accounts stretch further back. Quiet stories shared among ranchers long before newspapers took notice. Over time, the cases have become more peculiar. In some, scorched circles appear near the animal, as if something briefly touched down. In others, electromagnetic disturbances are reported. Watches stop, compasses spin, lights flicker. Some ranchers describe strange aircraft overhead the night before, silent black triangles or pulsing orbs that hovered without sound. The official explanations vary. Government agencies have at times suggested that scavengers, insects, birds or coyotes, might be responsible for the damage. That decomposition over time can mimic surgical prosthesis. But veterinarians and ranchers often push back. The cuts, they say, are too clean, the missing organs too specific, and the lack of blood utterly baffling. Others have proposed cult activity, secret military experiments, or biological testing. Yet none of these theories fully account for the consistency of the cases or the global spread. Because while the American West remains the most famous hotspot, cattle mutilations have also been reported in South America, Australia, Canada, and parts of Europe, often with the same eerie details, the same surgical precision, the same absence of evidence, and always the silence. Those who tie this phenomenon to extraterrestrials suggest a chilling possibility, that these animals are being studied, that something is collecting biological samples from Earth, perhaps to monitor environmental changes, to track genetic shifts, or even to test for contamination, and that cattle, as large, accessible mammals with complex biology, are the ideal subjects. Some theorists even go further, proposing that the mutilations are part of a long-term program, a genetic harvest conducted under cover of darkness, a quiet collection, performed not with malice but with clinical distance, as if we were ants in a glass case and something above was taking notes. What makes this theory particularly haunting is its emotional subtlety. These are not dramatic abductions or cinematic encounters. They are quiet, recurring events, moments that hint at something ongoing, systematic, and wholly indifferent to human understanding. The kind of pattern that suggests intelligence but not compassion, intention but not communication. And in that silence we are left to wonder, are we being observed not as people, but as specimens? Has something been visiting our planet, not to contact us, but to study us? And what might it mean if the Earth is not a home, but a lab? If these open fields are not empty, but under surveillance, watched from above, visited from time to time, and gently touched by hands we cannot see. As we continue now through these soft, mysterious pathways, we arrive next at a deeply human moment, one of lights, emotion, and contact. Let us now enter the strange, beautiful story of the aerial school encounter. Let us now drift softly into the warm, sunlit fields of Zimbabwe, to a quiet day in 1994 at a small rural school called Ariel, where children played under a bright sky, unaware that they were about to become part of one of the most mysterious and emotionally stirring alien encounters ever reported. This next story is known as the Aerial School Encounter, and it is whispered with a kind of reverence, not because of what was seen, but because of who saw it. On the morning of September the 16th, during recess, more than 60 school children between the ages of 6 and 12 were playing in the open fields behind their school. There were no adults nearby. The teachers were in a meeting, and the children were left alone with the wind, the grass, and the sun. Then, suddenly, something changed. The children described seeing a silver disc in the sky, smooth, silent, and shimmering, descending gently into a field near the schoolyard. Some say there was more than one. Some remember a pulsing light, but what they all agree on is that something landed, and from it emerged beings, small, thin, with large black eyes, moving silently. The children were frozen at first, not with fear, they said, but with confusion, with wonder. The beings did not speak out loud, but many of the children claimed they heard voices, not with their ears, but in their minds. A kind of telepathic connection. The message was simple and haunting. We are harming the planet. We are not taking care of Earth. Technology is moving too fast. Nature is being destroyed. And if we continue down his path, something irreversible may happen. These were the impressions left in the minds of the children. Feelings, emotions, images. Some wept when they told their stories. Some spoke of a sense of deep sadness. Others said they felt a warning, not of violence, but of sorrow. The incident lasted only a few minutes, and then the beings were gone. The object lifted into the sky, and the children were left in the grass, quiet and shaken, changed in ways even they did not fully understand. When the teachers returned, they found the children distressed, talking over one another, describing what had happened with voices that trembled. But what makes this encounter so compelling, even decades later, is not just the number of witnesses, but the consistency of their stories. Researchers and psychologists who interviewed the children found them sincere, intelligent, and deeply affected. The drawings they made were hauntingly similar. The emotions they described were raw and vivid. These were not rehearsed tales or shared fantasies. They were memories, real, or at least real to those who held them. And in the years that followed, many of those children, now adults, would return to the story with the same clarity. Some would break into tears when recalling the encounter. Some would describe how it had shaped their lives, their values, their view of the world, their sense of urgency about the planet. The aerial school encounter has been studied by journalists, scientists, and skeptics alike. Some believe it was mass hysteria, triggered by overactive imaginations and group psychology. Others suggest it was a hoax, a moment blown out of proportion by media attention. But those who listen closely, softly, often come away with a different feeling. One of quiet conviction, one of wonder, because these children were not seeking attention. They were not telling stories for fun. Dickon. They were trying to describe something they did not understand. Something beautiful, strange, and deeply moving. And if the message they received was real, then perhaps it was not just a warning, but a gift. A gentle reminder sent across the stars to the youngest among us that we are caretakers, that this world is fragile, and that someone, somewhere, is watching with concern, not power. As we drift further into this slow, luminous night, let us now follow another trail of lights, a trail that leads us back to the American Southwest, to a night when the sky itself seemed to ripple. Let us explore the still, unresolved beauty of the Phoenix Lights. Now we find ourselves gently floating over the vast open deserts of Arizona, where the night sky stretches like a dark ocean overhead, and the dry air carries sounds in curious ways. It was on a warm March evening in 1997 that something remarkable unfolded. Something seen not by one or two, but by thousands. This soft and mysterious event has come to be known as the Phoenix Lights, and it remains one of the most widely witnessed and emotionally resonant sightings in modern UFO history. The date was March the 13th, the time just after 8 p.m. What began as a quiet evening across the state slowly transformed into something otherworldly as people from Prescott to Phoenix looked up to see a formation of lights in the sky, bright, steady, and moving in a slow, deliberate silence. The lights formed a V-shape. Some witnesses said it looked like a massive craft, miles wide, blotting out the stars behind it as it passed overhead. Others believed it was a collection of individual orbs, glowing with a soft amber hue, gliding in perfect synchrony. There was no sound, no rush of engines, just the stillness of a presence, quiet, deliberate, and utterly vast. Some said the lights hovered, others said they moved with impossible smoothness. As the formation travelled south across the state, more people stopped in their driveways, walked out onto patios, pulled over on highways to stare upward in silent awe. Police officers saw it, pilots saw it, doctors, teachers, families, all describing the same eerie phenomenon. A craft or cluster so large, so slow, and so quiet it seemed almost dreamlike. The city of Phoenix, glowing in the desert night, watched in hushed wonder as the lights continued their path. And then, just as quietly as they came, they were gone. No crash, no explosion, just a return to stillness. In the days that followed, the story spread quickly. Local news stations interviewed witnesses. Call-in shows lit up with voices filled with wonder and confusion. And then, the silence was broken by laughter. Not from the witnesses, but from officials. The then governor of Arizona held a press conference, bringing out a staffer in an alien costume as a joke, attempting to calm public anxiety through humour. But the laughter felt thin, forced. Even the governor later admitted he had seen the lights himself and could not explain them. The official explanation was that flares had been dropped by military aircraft during a training exercise. And while flares can create light, they do not glide in formation. They do not hover silently for minutes. They do not fly in a perfect V across an entire state. And perhaps most importantly, flares do not block out the stars. For many, the explanation felt like a dismissal, a convenient patch placed over something deeper, something that brushed against the unknown. The Phoenix Lights remain a quiet monument to collective wonder, not just because of what was seen, but because of how it was felt. This was not a single witness recounting a blurry video. This was a tapestry of voices, strangers, united by a shared moment of stillness beneath something vast. And in that stillness was a kind of Now let us drift away from ancient deserts and glowing skies and rise higher, much higher, into the vast dark sea of the cosmos, where stars flicker like distant candles and galaxies spiral in graceful, silent arcs. Here, in the cold vacuum between solar systems, between the dreams of civilizations, lies one of the most haunting mysteries in all of science and philosophy. The question of why, in a universe so immense, so ancient and so filled with possibilities, we hear nothing. This next theory is called the Great Filter, and it is not about sightings or encounters. It is about absence, about the silence that presses in on all sides as we point our antennas to the heavens and listen for a voice that never answers. The idea is simple, yet chilling. If the universe is as old as it seems, over 13 billion years, and if life is not rare, then where is everyone? Why haven't we found clear signals, visited worlds, or shared knowledge with civilizations millions of years older than ours? The Great Filter suggests there is a barrier, a wall that intelligent life rarely crosses. A stage in the journey from stardust to starfaring that most species never survive. Perhaps it lies behind us, in the improbable leap from non-living matter to the first replicating molecule. Or perhaps it lies ahead, in technologies we have yet to invent and catastrophes we have yet to face. The filter might be something simple and unavoidable, like the self-destruction of advanced societies through war or climate collapse or artificial intelligence run astray. Or it may be something far more elusive, a cosmic pattern woven into the laws of physics that stops life from spreading too far, too fast. And the scariest possibility is that we are not early, we are late, that others came before us, long before us, and did not survive. That the silence we hear is not a void, but a graveyard, a universe once full of voices that have now gone quiet. But others, in softer tones, suggest another explanation, that the filter is not a death sentence, but a mirror. That civilizations grow inward, not outward, that once species reach a certain point, they abandon the noisy broadcasts, the crude rockets, the desire to colonize. Instead, they turn to understanding, to peace, to reflection. They become quiet, not because they are gone, but because they have found something more important than being found. And perhaps among these ancient minds there is a decision to observe but not interfere, to let young civilizations like ours find their way, stumble through darkness and grow on their own. A kind of cosmic quarantine, not out of fear but out of love. If this is true, then we may not be alone, just not yet ready. And the silence may not be empty but full of patient listening. In this way, the Great Filter becomes not a wall but a threshold, a test of whether we will choose cooperation over conflict, wisdom over impulse, whether we will protect our planet or consume it, whether we will reach out with open hands or clenched fists. And in the quiet between stars, perhaps there are eyes, not watching with judgment but with hope, waiting to see what kind of species we become. In the vast and gentle stillness of space, the Great Filter reminds us that silence can speak volumes, and that sometimes the most powerful message is the one not yet received. As we continue to float deeper into the folds of alien mystery and cosmic imagination, let us now explore a theory as strange as it is quiet. The idea that our reality itself may be the result of something artificial. Let us now enter the calm, shimmering edges of the simulation hypothesis. Now as we drift farther beyond stars and filters, beyond sightings and silence, we arrive at a theory not just about aliens, but about the very nature of reality itself. A concept that settles over the mind like a fog, gentle and strange, soft and unsettling. This idea is known as the simulation hypothesis, and it whispers that everything we see, touch, and feel may not be what it seems. That the stars above us, the earth beneath us, and even the thoughts within us may be part of a vast, carefully constructed illusion, an artificial reality crafted by minds far beyond our comprehension. At its core, the theory suggests that if a civilization survives long enough to become technologically advanced, so advanced that it can simulate entire universes with conscious beings inside, then it is likely that many such simulations exist. And if many simulated worlds exist, how do we know we are not living in one of them? It is not science fiction. It is a serious idea explored by philosophers, scientists, and engineers alike. Some, like Oxford professor Nick Bostrom, argue that there are only three possibilities. Either intelligent civilizations never reach the point of creating simulations, or they choose not to, or they do, and the number of simulated minds quickly exceeds the number of real ones. If that last scenario is true, then statistically we are almost certainly living inside one. But what makes this theory gently alien is the question of who, or what, created the simulation. If we are living in a simulated reality, then there must be architects, designers with the knowledge and power to program galaxies, life, and even consciousness itself. Some imagine them as future humans running simulations of their own past, ancestors within a digital museum. Others wonder if they are not human at all, but ancient alien intelligences so advanced they long ago transcended biology, creating layers of existence like nesting dolls, each more refined and less physical than the last. Perhaps they are not observing us, but dreaming us. Perhaps they exist in dimensions outside our own, watching time unfold like a painting, gently adjusting parameters, introducing anomalies, UFOs, synchronicities, unexplainable events, like hints dropped into a game. In this light, alien visitors may not be travelers from another star, but glitches in the simulation, messengers from higher levels of code, or moderators maintaining balance. It would explain why their appearances are so fleeting, why their craft defy physics, why their presence feels more dreamlike than mechanical. They are not bound by our rules, because they wrote them. And if this is true, if we are code, not atoms, then the entire search for aliens becomes something different. We are not looking for them in the stars, but in the patterns, in the symmetry, in the déjà vu, in the little moments when the world doesn't behave quite as expected. A repeating number, a strange coincidence, a dream that feels too real, a light in the sky that vanishes without a trace. These may be more than oddities. They may be messages, not in language, but in design. And perhaps the greatest question of all is not whether aliens exist, but whether we do. Whether the consciousness that looks through your eyes is original or rendered. Whether the universe you feel around you is natural or crafted. Whether the beauty you see in the stars is light from a dying sun, or a perfectly tuned simulation of wonder. But even if it is, does it matter? A simulated sunset can still be beautiful. A simulated love can still be real. And a simulated journey through stars and theories can still touch something deeper. So we float here, in this perhaps simulated cosmos, not with fear, but with a quiet awe. And as we prepare to close our voyage, let us settle into one final reflection. A theory that brings it all together in a soft circle, from ancient visitors to cosmic silence, from dreams to data. Let us now ease gently into the final chapter, the hypothesis of the observers.